to know whether or not exploring open relating or non-monogamy is for you is just to feel in your system. Is there a sense of enthusiasm and curiosity and a little bit of like, oh, I'm a bit scared, but I feel like I really want to like experiment with that? Or do you feel completely contracted and closed? And of course, the contraction and the closeness can also be a fear, and a fear that is not going to actually serve you. But of course, it could also just be your genuine feeling of like, no, this like you know when you've eaten too much cake and you're like, no, I'm done with cake now. I don't want any more. And I know that if I have more, it's not gonna be good for me. And sometimes like we just know I don't want to do this thing. Like it feels heavy, or it feels contracted, or it feels like I'd be poisoning myself. And then for others to say no to non-monogamy, to say yes to monogamy, that can feel like contraction or poisoning or something that's just like going against our authentic self. So I think this is the thing. It's like, don't listen. And I can't tell you how much I'm just like, I was really excited about polyamory and non-monogamy becoming more mainstream, and like seeing things on Netflix about it, and you know. But what I don't like, and like working with clients, or what I feel sad about, is we kind of jumped from monogamy, which was one set of restrictions and expectations, and now we're like, oh, this is old, let's try this other thing. And now there's so many people jumping onto non-monogamy,
to the other extreme.
Also within expectations and restrictions that are not actually coming from them. They're just following this like social kind of wave towards something and saying yes to shit they don't want. So I think this is the thing. It's like, this is the conscious sexuality. It might mean that today you're like, yeah, non-monogamy, that sounds cool. And then tomorrow you're like, oh, actually I'm not so sure about that. Like my body's feeling a bit contracted. And really just being like listening to our self and trusting and honoring ourselves, rather than, yeah, like abandoning ourselves.
And creating a space to get to know yourself and feel like this is something that is a call, is you're feeling naturally curious and is a call, and then eventually you get, as you say, that fear, but fear/excitement. There's something new and unknown. That is something that's happening to me, more than all the other people is doing it. That, you know what makes me remember the topic of tattoos. So the other day I met somebody who said, oh, you have tattoos? And I said, yeah, I have like 2 or 3 tattoos. That's amazing. And I asked her, you have tattoos? And she said, I don't have non-tattoo. I have, and I will not make tattoos. And I said, why you will not make tattoos? You have like you sound very convinced about it. And she said, because now everyone is having tattoos. So then it makes me think, and I say, well, the reason that you don't want tattoos is because everyone is not doing it. So for me, it's the same mindset of people who make tattoos because everyone is doing it. So you're taking the same decision, but I mean, you're taking different decisions, but the mindset is coming from the same place, which is what other people is doing.
Exactly. So, you're still being controlled.
Exactly. So creating a space for self-awareness through whatever it is, through yoga or meditation or qigong or time alone or journaling or whatever it is, like a sacred practice on developing self-awareness, to learn, as you say, like to read and to trust the body if it is a real call, and is eventually you are called to try something new, and eventually if it's messy, well, at least you learn a lot, I guess, right?
Well, this is the thing. It's like do not enter into any relationship, I would say, unless you're in touch with your body, unless you're in touch with what is really going on. Because particularly with non-monogamy, it's not like you just flip a switch and now you're suddenly in a non-monogamous experience and great. It's like I feel like monogamy is kind of simple in that you get into a relationship and straight up, like traditional monogamy is kind of simple in that, like, the biggest choices you have are like, how much time will we spend together in the week? Will we live together? You know, all this kind of stuff. Whereas with non-monogamy, you have to think about so many different things, and things you didn't even like think about, like, is it okay? Like, do I feel comfortable with texting my partner, texting other lovers at midnight? Is that okay? And, you know, like things like this. And so like you really need to be in touch with your body and in touch with those cues and not denying them, and not your mind going like, oh, but I'm progressive and I'm in a conscious spiritual community, I should say yes to things like this. It's like, no, no, listen to yourself. And of course, you might feel really triggered, and it might be because you feel jealous, or you might feel fear of being abandoned, or you might feel like you're not worthy and they're going to pretty soon find out that you are not good enough to be with, and they're going to run off with this other person. Stuff like that, of course, doesn't mean that you should then put these like mega boundaries around people, but you listen to your body, you don't deny shit. And what you do is you allow that to ripple through your body and allow that to be released. So using emotional release tools, breath, sound, movement, dance, screaming into your hand, diving under the water, screaming into the water.
Crazy ISTA, emotional releasing techniques.
Yes. And beyond as well. It's not just from ISTA. And that way it's like, you know, those animals, like when an antelope gets chased by a lion and she's filled with all this adrenaline from this fear of death, which is basically what we feel in relationships of like fear of breakup or fear of abandonment. We get filled with this adrenaline, and then the antelope knows how to deal with that. She shakes and she releases it. Whereas generally in our progressive communities or intellectual elitist, you know, spaces, it's like, no, we must be composed and above all of this. So I'm just not going to feel any of it. I'm just going to push it down and talk about it, something else. And so we need to be able to release that stuff. But the first thing is to feel the body, to be in touch with the body.